All right. Hey guys, welcome back to my regular Wednesday night live stream. Yes, we started at 8 o'clock today. It seems to be varying times that I do now, which I think works well for people. I have the very amazing Tom Barnett, who I came to know through a friend of mine who told me to listen to his podcast on the language that you're supposed to use. And so big shout out to you, Jesse Bell. I really appreciate you letting me know about him. And now I have him on my channel. So that's pretty special. Hello, Tom.
Hey, Dia.
I'm really pleased to have you. But before we continue with the conversation, as with all my usual tradition, I'm going to read a Bible verse. So this one is from the book of Luke, chapter 6, verse 38, King James. Give and it shall be given unto you, good measure, pressed down and shaken together and running over, shall men give into your bosom. For with the same measure that ye meet withal, it shall be measured to you again. All right. I think that's a good Bible verse. Give and you shall receive, essentially. Maybe not with the government, but hey. Jesse Bell, thank you for introducing me to him. Now we have him on. How great is that, Jesse?
Hey, Jesse.
All right. Well, yeah, you got to give him a shout out. He's awesome. All right, so let's begin with your knowledge. How did you come to know all these things? I started listening to one of your interviews. I only got halfway, and then I get distracted easily. But I wrote it all down, everything that I heard you say so far. So you were saying that if you ever end up in court and the judge says to you, "Are you Dia Beltran or are you Tom Barnett?" you say in response, "Well, that is how you guys identify me, but blah, blah, blah." Like, I've got my notes there actually, right here. Yeah, here it is. Sorry, I really did write it down. You said something like, hang on, let me find it. Are you Dia Beltran? So they are wanting you to affirm that label. And then the response you're supposed to say something to the effect of, "Out of necessity, I do answer to that name. In doing so, I waive all rights and privileges. I'm only here under duress." So how did you learn all that? Do you have a law degree? I should have probably done more research, but the thing is, I wanted to get to know you through you. So go ahead.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so just careful with the wording, because you just said I waive my rights. So what you want to say is I reserve all of my rights.
I think I wrote that and I just said the wrong
waive
thing.
all benefits. It's all right.
But how do you know that? Like, where did you learn this? This is so smart. Like, I came to start realizing this stuff when I was listening to Ramola D. I don't know if you know who that is, but Ramola D taught me, and I've had her on my show as well, that, you know, there's two contracts. There's like a living contract. And so it's sort of similar to what you said when you said that there's the private world and the public world, and the public world is a fantasy and the private world is reality, or something to that effect. Where did you learn all that? Like, did you do a law degree, or is this just stuff that you've researched on your own?
No.
Go ahead.
Yeah, law doesn't interest me at all. It was through Mark. You probably saw the interview I did with Mark Patelik from Solutions Empowerment, and that's who I really learned all of this from. I learned a lot about common law previously, but a lot of it wasn't really applying. Like, when it all sounds good in theory, and then when you go to apply it, it doesn't have the kind of results. So I learned a lot from Mark, and it was really eye-opening for me to learn more about commerce in that regard.
Yeah. Because did you know something about, like, do you know what I mean because if you go to the Vatican and you do a living contract, because your name is a corporation, right, on a piece of paper, and then someone taught me about when you go to the Vatican and you remove that paper yourself as a corporation, and then you do something like an announcement to the Vatican, like you're a living contract, so you're no longer that paper. Have you heard of something like that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's reclaiming your status. Yeah, you can. There's a lot of different ways you could go about that. Yeah, well,
go ahead.
if you can, then sure. Yeah. I'm not sure how many people could actually do that, but Because the thing is, like, you hear about that, but then going ahead and doing it, that's something else. That's like
Yeah.
actually pulling it off is something different. So what's usually something you can do that everybody can do is attain their certificate of live birth. So what that means
That's
is
right.
when you were born, your parents signed off on various documents, and that created the birth certificate. So the birth certificate, which is what most people use as their primary source of identification, that is essentially the corporate you. That is you made into a trust, and then the government essentially has they don't own you, but what you can do is you can obtain your certificate of live birth, and that shows that you're a living being. The birth certificate says that you're a vessel or a non-living entity. So what you want as somebody that's alive is a certificate of live birth, and that gives your standing as a living being as opposed to an entity or something that's not alive.
That's insane though, right? Like, how long has that been implemented in societies? Has that been for the last 2,000 years or like the last 1,000? Like, have you any idea of the origins of
Yeah,
when that became what it was? Yeah, go ahead, tell us. Educate
yeah.
us.
I think it's pre-biblical because some people say it's only since birth
Oh,
certificates were put into
okay.
circulation, which I think was in the 1930s, and that's around about the time that the world's countries became insolvent and went bankrupt and all sold off to the IMF. But if you look at various verses of the Bible, which obviously you're into, there's a lot of passages that says words to the effect of the Creator is no respecter of persons. And so a person being an entity or a legal entity was around back in the biblical time. So I think it dates back somewhere between around 3,000 years, I think, is when people were sold as slaves to the state, essentially, because the Bible speaks a lot about that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And the whole debt system, the Babylonian money system, that's all laid out in the Bible. So I don't have the answer, but I do think it's about 3,000 years.
That's ages. That's a long time. And do you feel like
Yeah.
do you feel like this is all leading to something bigger and that we are to blame the globalists?
Yep. Well, I think that started back then. I
Yeah.
think we've gone through various iterations of civilizations. That this isn't the first time we've had, a population boom and then a collapse. I think it's happened numerous times before. And one of the elements is that it's always, unless the people learn from history, we'll keep repeating the same mistakes. So
Oh
we
yeah.
essentially, while we've been born into the system, we've kind of really perpetuated because people are inherently quite lazy. We're willing to give away rights in return for the perceived security that comes with having a government and regulations and a police force and all this sort of stuff, when that's not really the case. It's not really a security. It's just sold to us as that. And people swap their rights for it because they're inherently, average person is inherently lazy. They want
What a
convenience more than they want rights and taking responsibility.
so accurate. And that's sadly, and I hate to say this, that's very much the Australian way as well. Like we are, well,
Yeah.
whether you want to count me as Australian or not, the white nationalists certainly don't. But like Australians are apathetic. They are so apathetic,
Yeah.
and we need to start getting up off our asses and talking more, going to rallies more. With my very brief research that I did of you, I noticed that you've had videos taken down and you're considered like kind of like a dissident to the state. How does that make you feel?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it
Does
makes me
it
feel
bother
good
you?
because it means you're doing something right. No, 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 not
True.
at all. No, no. It's always good because if you're doing that, it's you're on the right track. It's like it's anybody that gets something censored, you kind of go, well, what was it? What did they say? I want to see it now, because it's like it's just fishy then, even for mainstream people. So I'm glad that sort of stuff goes on for me.
I'm glad about it too. I don't like having my bank account taken away from me. That has been a bit more difficult. I've maneuvered around it and I'm fine, but I don't want that to keep happening. It's not fun to lose your bank account. But
No.
what have you lost aside from like having videos taken down and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, PayPal restricted my account, and I've got them in the Supreme Court at the moment, so that's we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's funny things happen, when you start speaking out, and then all these large companies own things like banks and PayPal and all the other financial systems. Then things can start going a bit weird, and
Is
emails
your
not
name
coming
your name?
through, or it's my
Oh,
birth
well,
name. Yeah.
I'm wondering how they knew who I was, because I obviously go by, and I mean, I'm still a
Mm,
face, but the name I go by is as I told you off camera, like it's a, whatever the
yeah.
word is, a pseudonym. Is that the word?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But yet they still took my account. I'm like, what the hell? Like, how do you know? It's
Mm.
weird. So you're going to
Yeah,
you're
but
taking them to court. Oh yeah, sorry, go. Yeah, yeah,
taking
but
him to
there's
court.
yeah.
Yeah, well, there's so many ways that people can find that information. It's like if you've ever even just said it over the phone, it's been recorded in one way or another. So, all of people want this whole aspect of privacy, and we're obviously that's a right. We should have that right to privacy, but in this world that we live in, with all of these companies that run the operating systems and the back ends of everything that we use, unless you're using properly encrypted electronics, then everyone's got your information anyway. So that's how they can find out where you live, or your bank accounts, or your real name, or whatever. Even if you go by an alias,
Oh, that's
it's
the word.
good. What that's really good. Yeah, but what it's really good for is privacy from people that are like predatory people. Because then, if
Oh yeah, yeah,
somebody
yeah.
just has some weird fascination with you, then they don't know who you really are. But if the government or the banks want to know, then they've got pretty well open access to that information.
So yeah, exactly. So what are you doing? Exactly. What are you claiming against PayPal? What's the argument, if you're allowed to discuss it?
Yeah, so they restricted my account, and which was soon after I put my first video out that went viral, which was the one on viruses, and then they
Yeah.
said that I have to. They said that you have to put in some more identification in order to have your account de-restricted, which I did give them, and then they said it wasn't the right one, and then it went back and forth, and then I gave them more, and they said, "All right, that's the right one. Now we just need this," but it was stuff that I'd already handed in, so they were being really incompetent, is the word for it. So what I did was I just got sick of it, because you can't email them back. There's no phone number you can call them on. It's really just like they're essentially taking the piss. So what I did was
Yeah.
I got a ASIC company extract to find out who the board of directors are for PayPal in Australia. It's much better to
Wow.
notice individual people than it is to notice a company, because you can make the individuals liable as opposed to the company, which can hide behind trusts and securities and all that kind of thing. So what I did, by the way, if anybody doesn't know what ASIC is the Australian Securities and Investment Commission. It's a
Oh, I
website
knew who
where
they
you
were.
can obtain, company extracts. So you pay like $9 for an extract, which is well worth it, because you can find out who the shareholders are and so on and so forth. So I got the names and the addresses. So then I sent notices to them. They didn't reply.
Good.
So
Of
then I sent
course.
invoices to them, and they didn't reply to those. So then when they don't pay, 3 invoices with 3 reminder notices to pay, then essentially in the private, you've created a debt. There is an estoppel agreement, or they have acquiesced by silence to there being a debt. So then I sent them a notice of that was a creditor's statutory demand I sent in with a supporting affidavit. So once you serve somebody with a creditor's statutory demand, they have a certain time period with which to respond or pay. And if they don't, you'll get a default judgment if you take it to a court. So what PayPal have done is, after the whole corona hoax came in, the period of time to respond to a statutory demand was increased from a month to
Can you
6 months
say
to give
can
people
you
more
say
time to
Rona? Say Rona. Say Rona. I just don't want this channel to get
Rona.
taken down. Say Rona. Yeah, keep
Yeah, right.
going.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Sweet.
Keep going. Sorry, I didn't mean
So,
to interrupt. Keep going.
yeah, so no, that's okay. So the time period got extended. So they were coming right up to their 6 month period, and they got in touch with me and said, "We want you to drop the statutory demand." And I was like, "Well, no. Why am I going to drop that when I've created a debt and you owe me money?" So they they got a bit like testy, like they really wanted me to drop it because it's just costing them money now. Like they have to file, it costs them like $3,000 just to file for it to be heard in the Supreme Court. So I'm at the stage now where they put affidavits in and I put mine in, and the actual hearing, which will be in a couple of weeks' time. So we'll see what happens. Courts are corrupt, and a company the size of PayPal can easily pay off judges and things like that. But I've set them up in a few different ways.
In the
Supreme
city? Will it
Court's
be
in
in
Sydney.
Sydney? In the city? Maybe I'll attend. Like maybe I could do a vlog about it.
You don't turn up
you're
to
not
them.
going to turn up?
No, they do online court at the moment, so you don't have to. Otherwise, I'd have to travel from Byron to Sydney. Yeah, so with the whole, all the
probably shouldn't have just doxed your location. Okay.
No, it's all right. Everybody knows I live around here. So
okay.
yeah, but it's more like the whole thing with all the current regulations. They're saying that you don't have to attend the court, and they're just doing it the online court, which is fine for me. It saves me a flight and everything down to Sydney.
Yeah, that's completely true. Okay. Well, that's really intelligent. Like the way you went about doing it, you sort of went not backhanded, but backhanded for them. Like they wouldn't have expected you to have done it that way, and now they're obviously butthurt. And yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, basically.
All right. Oh, I love it. I think you're definitely whether you like it or not, you're definitely a leader type. You definitely have information, and I think many of the, I don't know would you say I don't personally like the whole idea of left, center, right, because I find all of them retarded in their own way, but I do lean right if I was to like label myself. What would you say about yourself?
No idea, because I hear those terms, but I don't actually know what they mean.
Good.
Yeah, I've run for politics. I was in the well, I was in the federal election 2 years ago, and I still don't know what a right or a left is.
Sorry, that's so good. I'm laughing because you ran for it, but you still have a concept of it. That's so good. I love that. That's so perfect. I think you lean right. I do believe in God.
Yeah.
Are you a Christian? Yeah.
What? Sorry, I missed the question.
Are you a Christian?
It broke up.
Do you believe in God? Do you believe in God? Are you a Christian?
Oh, okay. No, I don't have a religion or anything of any kind. I class myself as spiritual, but I don't have any kind of religion. No, I mean, I see a lot of value in a lot of different religions, but I don't follow any particular one.
Okay. I just thought I'd ask. Well, because you seem like a lot of people are looking for a leader. Like, where's the leader? We don't know where he is, and he's hidden in his cell on Telegram, just doing shit all thinking he's making a difference. You actually are. You are actually making a difference because you have a brain, you're intelligent, and you don't know what left or right is. So that's the best thing I've ever heard. I'm sorry, that's so good. Like, that just makes me laugh. I love that. All right, cool. Sorry, that's just entertaining to me. All right, I reckon that I have you here. For those who don't know enough about you, I think you should explain the differences between the private and the public, the world of the dead and the world of the living, which is how you put it. Do you want to just sort of give everyone a rundown on that? I reckon that's really educational, because that's just sort of where I started. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's probably the most important, because that's the building blocks for everything that you'll do. So essentially what we do is, the world that we live in, we have the world of illusion and the world of substance or reality. And the illusion world is the mirror image of the reality world. The thing is that our education, that's an indoctrination into the world of the fictional world. So what we have, to break it down simply, is we have the world of the living. That's us, living men and women. And we're born with inherent rights. Those rights can't be taken away. But what happens is, we're tricked at the point of birth, where we are signed or sold into the debt slavery system. And that's done by way of becoming a ward of the state, which is done through the registration of birth. So that creates the fictional you, the entity. So you go around throughout life as the living being, but then the entity is the thing that gets traded. And that's represented by your all caps name, like all in capital letters, for example. And but what happens is it's a mirror image of the world of the private. So in the world of the private, we have living men and women. The mirror image of that in the public is are persons, and persons are entities. So in the world of the private, which is the world of substance, the living, we have laws. And there are really only two laws, and that is love thy creator and love thy neighbor. So if you follow those two laws, you're essentially coming down to cause no harm or loss. And that's basically it. In the world of the public, though, which is the mirror image, in Australia, we have more than 7 million statutes, codes, acts, legislations, and so on and so forth. In America, more than 23 million. So those all apply only in the world of the public, which is the world of entities. So all of those statutes, codes, and acts apply to persons. In the world of the private, which is the world of the living, we only have two laws: love thy neighbor, love thy creator, and they apply to living men and women. So then we have a lot of other, mirror images. So in the private world of the living, we have rights. As I said, we're born with those; they can't be taken away. But if we subvert ourselves to being a person, for example, then instead of having rights, we have the mirror image, which is benefits and privileges. That's like saying, dear, here you go. Here's a license. You can drive a car. Here's a passport. You can go overseas. Or here's a bank account. You can put some credits because there's no money. That's the other thing. In the world of the private, we have money, but that's gold and silver coin. In the world of the public, we have legal tender and currency, which is fictional money. It's not real money. So we're given benefits and privileges, but only slaves have benefits and privileges. In the world of the private, we have rights, but we need, with the language that we speak and the actions we take and the belief in who we are, we need to reclaim that and hold that status. We don't want to subvert ourselves inadvertently to being in the world of the public and only having benefits and privileges, which is essentially what slaves beg for. And we're not slaves. We're kind of like born into that. They want us to be slaves, but we don't need to be.
We're also slaves to sin, but that's a completely different topic.
Yeah, yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you learned all of this through your live that you did with that other dude?
No, I learned it over a couple of years, and then eventually I was just like, well, I have to interview him so other people can hear it from a guy that's been doing it for 25 years. So that was the reason I interviewed Mark.
Oh, awesome. And do you want to tell everyone about your website and what that's all about?
Yeah, so I started the site's called tombarnett.tv, and that was in response to me getting a few bans from YouTube and Facebook and things where I do a lot of live streams. And
I'm there. This isn't even my channel. So,
yeah. Well, it's like
I had to use a different one. Sorry.
It's all the censorship. So the censorship's getting a bit out of control. So in order to make that a bit safer, then we're going to host it all on a private site. So it's just going to be a lot of information, just live streams on law and health and the way of the world, spirituality, things like that. And then also I'll eventually start making educational programs so people can get more in depth into that. And hopefully eventually the plan is to make a homeschooling program so that kids don't have to go through the indoctrination system and become wards of the state and slaves, and learn it from a young age and learn how to look after their bodies and their minds so that they're not following government advice and that sort of stuff. That's
amazing. I have, everyone I think has the same idea of, doing it privately, but I'm not, and this isn't like a woe is me, it's just a fact. My profile hasn't grown enough yet for me to then be able to be like, oh, everyone come over here. I've been doing this for 3 to 4 years. I've interviewed some of the biggest names ever, but yet the subscriptions grow, but it's not beyond 50K or anything like that. And so I don't feel like I can do that yet until I've established something a little bit stronger. And I mean, your YouTube channel, which I only just found, is 26K. That's a decent number. That's a decent number to move from one platform to another. So how did you get it? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's kind of, but it's not really because I'm shadow banned on all of those platforms. The thing is that throughout
Oh,
what I've done, I've got like a large network from around the world now, from done interviews with people from Canada, America, the UK, New Zealand. So basically what I've got that network. So that means that when the site goes up, I use that network to get people engaged with and knowing about, or on a mailing list, for example, where I can direct them to information or to my site or whatever. And that's where it came from. And that literally when I had 0 subscribers when I had my YouTube channel. And
of
then after I
course,
put the
same.
video out, yeah, when I put the video out on viruses, then I went to like 19,000 in a week. But that was before it got
Before, yeah.
censored. Yeah, so it eventually got like tens of millions of views, but it got censored from YouTube and Facebook. But then other people uploaded it to their channels, so it got seen by a lot of people, but they didn't know where to subscribe to or whatever on YouTube because my version of it was censored.
Yeah, that's so crappy. Yeah, I've had videos that do well. I've never had something like that. The most like I think I've had on a video is like 14,000 or something like that. But yeah, but they get suppressed and
Mm,
then like they get shadow banned and it's like, well, what's the point in trying to get your voice out there? But you still need to keep doing it because if
yeah,
you're speaking the truth about inoculations, I'm using that word instead of the V word, and
yeah,
if you talk about the Rona, if you talk about government overreach, if you talk about any of these things, you're not allowed to talk about it. Like you get strikes. Not only that, YouTube sent out a message saying anyone who does any more information about the election if will have, they may lose their channel. It's like, so are you basically admitting by taking that course of action that did happen because you guys assisted in that deception? It's really weird, and it's quite frustrating that some of the people on this wall, because I have not changed the photos in like 7 years, I've had fights with, saying to them, don't you realize that if you're censored to that degree and if they're doing that, that's not a good thing. No, no, no. You don't know what you're talking about. Dan Andrews is a great guy and this and that. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, I just want to shake him. It's like, and I know that they're going behind my back with their girlfriends who are no longer talking to me, going, she's so thick, she's so this, she's so that. It's like, one day you're gonna realize I'm right. Like, do you have that? Do you as a male have that with your friends, or is it different with men with
not
that
really.
dynamic?
No, I think I'm a bit old too. I mean,
Mm.
I wouldn't care if I did. So the I think the difference is I also don't feel the need for people to understand stuff either. Like I'm not really doing this for yeah,
I
I'm
just
only
want them
really
to
doing
have
it
the
because
truth.
yeah, well, it's, I mean, it's like the world is just, I want to see the world a certain way. Like it's the world that I want to live in is what I'm trying to create. And that's never going to be what everybody else wants. So I don't really get upset or frustrated when people think Dan Andrews is doing a great job or they're lining up to get the inoculation or whatever. It doesn't really bother me because as long as I've done my bit, then I can't really control what other people think or do. You know,
No,
that's their part of like God, you know, having its experience. So I'm not really that concerned as long as I've done what I can. So if I've done my best, then I've done what I feel is my duty, and then it's not up to me to go run after them and grab them by the shoulders and shake them and that kind of thing. It's just I offer, and if they don't want to take it, then that's fine with me.
yeah. The funny thing is, it does bother me because I don't want my friends to go sterile if that's the case. Like a lot of people might, like a lot of people were talking about the cancer injection, the cervical cancer injection that people had years ago, like while I was
Mm-hmm.
in my 20s. And they're saying that will make you sterile, and plenty of women have had babies. So, I mean, only time will tell what this inoculation will do. But and I want to be wrong. I want to be wrong. That's the thing. I think people think that I warn people that I'm fear mongering. I'm not trying to fear monger. I'm trying to warn you guys. I always write on my Instagram, if this is to be believed. I make sure to use that phrase. If this is to be believed, you can no longer go to the dentist or whatever it is. Like, yeah. How do you feel about that? Do you Like, do you think that the inoculation will make people sterile, will make people sick, will make people seizure? Like, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's already doing that. If you look at the reports of what's going on, there's people have
I have
died, people
same.
had many adverse reactions. I think, though, to answer that in a broader sense, people are already making themselves sterile over the last 10 or 20 years. Like the actual fertility
Mm.
rates have dropped a lot. And that's because people like leave their phone or their laptop or an iPad on their lap all the time, or they don't eat well, they microwave their food, they don't get enough sunshine, they're too stressed. All of that stuff affects fertility. So people have really been kind of doing that to themselves for a while anyway. And if they're of the mind that the medical industry has their best interests at heart and they're trying to, improve their health, well, then it's kind of like a lesson that they got to learn one way or another, because people like us are giving them the information. If they don't want to hear it, well, it's like they can get that lesson one way or another, and maybe they won't become infertile or have a adverse reaction, and that's great too. So it's not really. I just think people have been doing it to themselves for a long time, and it's nothing new. But if people actually did just want to look at the actual documented reactions to the first round of this inoculation that's been doled out, they can see clearly the number of adverse reactions and deaths that have already occurred. So it's like, if that doesn't convince people, then it's like, you or I aren't really going to do that either.
What was I going to ask? Can we assume that the people who are killed in these trials are volunteers or people who are being paid, and that's just one of their consequences, or are they doing it on unsuspecting victims?
Both. It's both.
Okay. Jeez, that's horrible. Yeah, a friend of mine said that she will totally do it after she has her baby because she's super pregnant right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we had an argument about it, and I said to her, I don't want to talk politics or anything with you anymore. And she got mad at me. And I know you're smiling like, yeah, I don't care. If people don't want to listen, these people aren't worthy of being our friends. But girls are a little different, I think. But it is saddening, and it bothers me because it's like, what I think will end up happening is that, and I don't want this to happen, but part of me does, is that they'll be like, see, I told you, my grandfather's fine, my neighbor's fine, they've all been inoculated and they're fine. And then it's like, well, good, do you not realize I want to be wrong? I don't want all of this reality and implementation of the globalist agenda and the great R and all of that stuff to be real. I want to be wrong, but I'm warning you guys because I don't think I am. Do you think all of that stuff will come to pass?
I think so. I think that's part of the plan. Yeah. It's
I was
I
hoping
mean,
you'd say no. Yeah.
yeah,
Keep
well,
going.
it's yeah, I really think it's just part of the plan, and it's always meant to go that way. And it's really that whole thing of consent. Like, they've offered this to us, and some of us, like you and I, are saying no, we don't consent to that. And other people are willingly, they want it, they're consenting to it, and they're saying yes. And that's really the choice, that we've always been given the choice as to whether we do that to ourselves or not. So you're right, there are people that have smoked and drank for their whole life, they're 90 years old and they're still fine. But that definition is also very broad. People say they're fine, but they're like, they've got all sorts of, whether they think it's an issue or not, they're just not functioning the way that the body or the mind is meant to function. And there are so many things that get cut off that people aren't aware of, like the subtleties, the subtle bodies that we all have can just be completely cut off. So then you don't have a sense of anything higher than yourself. And so you don't have a reverence for things, for example. You don't find safety and security and love within the smallest things, which you do if you have all of those subtle bodies intact. But if you're not aware of them, you don't even know that they're there. It's like if somebody has never seen ultraviolet light or something, or like fluorescent light, something that you got to put funny glasses on to see or whatever, or a certain light shining on you to see the color or the glow in the dark effect, you just say it's not there. And if you can't see it, you'll defend to the death that it's not a thing because you can't see it or feel it. But that's not to say that there's nothing wrong with you, because you're meant to feel it and you're meant to see it. And so that's where we find people saying things like, well, I'm fine and I've had every vaccine, but they're fine by the standards that they define, which is not necessarily the standard of definition of being a fully realized human being. And then also, though, nobody's had what's being offered right now. This is not a V word. This is a it's a completely different thing. It's not even classed as an inoculation. It's an actual, it's got more to do with altering genetics, and it's got to do with chipping people, and that's what is essentially being.
Do you believe that? You believe it's a chip thing? Because I don't. There I disagree with you, because I mean we have these are identifiers for where you're going. What like, and I also really get quite frustrated at Christians who say this is the mark of the beast. I'm like, no, it's not. It might be a road or a catalyst to that, but it's not the mark of the beast. There is no Antichrist. The temple in Jerusalem has not been built. It doesn't match the sequence of events. We haven't had 3.5 years of peace from a deceptive prophet type, political type, and then the second 3.5 years of peace. This is not the mark of the beast. There's no 666 or barcode or chip or whatever. That hasn't happened. So this is probably a catalyst to that, but don't scare the shit out of people and say that is exactly what it is. But you're saying, I'm not saying that you're saying it's the mark of the beast, but you're saying you think, or that you're under the impression that the inoculation is chipped somehow.
Yeah, well, chipped might be the wrong word. Chipped is actually getting a chip implanted in you, and that's what some people are going to want anyway, out of convenience.
That's a thing in Sweden.
Yeah,
for humans.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but there's definitely nanotech in the vaccines, and they're meant to interface with phones and things like that. So it's like you say that the phone is a tracking device, which it is, but it's it can interface with the nanotech that's in the things that they inject.
Interface. When you say that, what do you mean?
Well, they can talk to each other. So everything that has anything that's tech can speak to anything else. So as any signal that's emitted from a device nearby will be picked up by and send information to the whatever tech is around. So if that's in the body, then that's what's going to interface and talk to signals from another device. So I don't think it's anything super sinister, like they're going to do mind control or like turn people into zombies or anything like that. But it's just not. It's just not natural. It's not the way that we're meant to be. It's not. It's like God's way, so to speak. So it's very much getting into the transhumanism. It's like the way law works. It's like the Creator created man, and then man created government, and then government creates rules, acts, legislations, and codes. And man was never supposed to serve a government. So that's even written in the scriptures. It's like, man, you can't serve two masters. You can only serve one. So either you serve the government, which is the fake kind of deity that you created, or you serve the creator. You can't serve two masters. So the day that man decided to worship like an earthly entity, that's the day that man cut himself off from God from a legal sense. And so we do that. People are doing that now when they're trying to go down this road of transhumanism, where it's like melding technology with humans, and it's really not what we're meant to do. So it's like a further disconnect from the creator, which is obviously never going to go. It's never going to go well. So it's up to people like us that can see this sort of thing and want to be closer to nature and God. That's what I think that's what the scriptures actually talk about, is where there is that divide, and then that's what I think what we're heading into. I don't know for sure, but I just think that's where we're headed.
We're headed. I think part of what you said is correct, and I don't mind being corrected by any of the Christians watching. I think we're supposed to be governed. The Jewish people throughout the Old Testament constantly failed God and needed a king, and so they elected Saul. I don't know. I can't remember who it was, but they elected a king, and then that king, and then they had Solomon, and then after Solomon they had David or Saul. Anyway, I forget. I don't know. But my point is that humans, often people say, and I agree somewhat, that anarchism, there's a level of that is appealing. There is a level of that's appealing. But we need to be governed. Otherwise, we end up like Lord of the Flies, and people are stupid. Like, I mean, that's a horrible thing to say. Even I'm really dumb with some things. Like, we're all stupid in our own category, but we need to be governed. But like, I just don't know the right system. I don't know whether that's theocratic or monarchism. Like, but my point is that constantly, even when Moses, I know you don't believe in the Bible in its literal entirety, but I'm going to use this as an example. Moses freed the slaves, being a Hebrew himself. He freed the slaves are freed. The Egyptians they let them all go. Okay. And then he's on top of Mount Sinai. The Hebrew people are waiting. They get frustrated. And then they go, after having experienced the waters opening and parting, after having visually seen the plagues, they made a god out of gold of all their crap. They melded it together. They made a golden calf. This is the God that helped us, a God that they just made. So my point is, we are stupid. We are people. We are stupid. We need to be governed. I just don't know how. What do you think about my counter argument there?
No, because the way that there's no system that can govern the amount of people that are always governed by a system. So it can never be done successfully. That's why it's never, it's always been shown that a leader will fall or a city will crumble or whatever, or people will overthrow the government or the leader or what have you. It's been very, very few times in history where a king or somebody has been revered for their lifetime. And if they have, it's because they always did support the will of the people and not rule from an overarching state unless it was benevolent. And that has happened. That has happened a couple of times in history, but it's quite rare. And but realistically, I think that's also losing faith in the fact that if we're created in his image, then surely there's some element of morality and knowing what to do. And if we're disconnected from that, I think that's when things go awry. If we lose our connection to that higher source, then yeah, we're like kids running around, running amok, doing wrong things. But if we have that connection intact, then I don't think we do need to be governed at all, because that's the definition of becoming an adult, is actually having the ability to self-govern and to know right from wrong, to know that, if you do the wrong thing by another, you do the wrong thing to yourself and to the creator. So, there's a lot in that, and it's a lot for people to take in sometimes. But if we have the mindset that we need to be governed and we ask to be governed, then that's exactly what will happen. And we can't really complain when we have a tyrannical governing system then that we asked for, because that's essentially what we asked for. If we think
statement.
If we're incapable of knowing morality for ourselves.
That's very I think I can jump on board with that. Do you believe that I believe that the Bible is the objective truth. It's all in here. People claim that it's, in other books like the Quran, no. The Book of Mormon, no. Like, it's all here. This book says that all the other continuations are false. It pre-stated it. All the other prophets that come after me is false. So under that, do you believe that being more and more anti-God, how we've become, more and more anti-Christian, more and more persecution of Christians, do you believe that plays a role in the crappiness of the planet Earth today in terms of just basic morality, like 9-month abortions? Yay! Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It could do. It's. I don't think any one particular religion is the saving grace of humankind. I think it's the connection to the Creator, regardless. And I think every religion has something that is positive. And I just think it's got
positive. Yes, but yeah, keep going.
Well, there's too many instances of where that goes wrong. Where people, they disregard life and the sanctity of life, like, with things like, abortions. But then, like, even, I was raised as a Christian as well, but even I had to question. I was like, well, how many people died in how many murders happened in the by the hands of Christians, in order to maintain power and things like that. So it's like, I don't think there's a religion that's not fallible. I think they all are. And it's important though to take everything for to look beyond, I think, what's just written in stone and to find that connection yourself. Because to me, that's what's lacking. Too many people have been disconnected from God, and religion is a way to disconnect people from God sometimes. So you look at the way
Oh,
some
I
people,
agree. Yeah.
like, the way some people treat each other and stone them to death, or the way some men treat women in other parts of the world because of their religion. It's like, this is my religion says I can do this, but any moral human being would go, well, I wouldn't do that. Like, not naming names of religions and things like that, but you probably know what I'm talking about. But
Oh, I was happy to name them, but yeah, I know you're fine.
so,
That's
so
where we're
you know what I
different, I
mean? Like,
guess.
it's like,
Yeah, absolutely.
how could they have a connection to the divine? I think they've got a connection to their script that lets them do what they want to do, and maybe they've even misinterpreted. I don't know, but I really think that it's on an individual level. If we have disconnected from God, then that's where all the immorality is coming from in the world. And if
Yeah.
people just look to get that back, which to me, and I'm not saying this is the right way, but to me, the more you can get that grounding to the earth and connection to nature, that it makes it easier to find that connection to God, because it's kind of like, unless you're grounded, you're never really going to do that well. And unless you have a connection to something higher, you're also not going to be able to find that
Yeah.
harmony and that balance as a being
Do
on
you
earth.
do
So
you,
yeah,
yeah,
to me, what were you
keep
going to
going.
ask?
I was just gonna say, do you live in a loincloth on the weekends? I was just trying to
But yeah,
like
yeah,
you were one with nature,
yeah,
you sound a little bit like a Tarzan over the weekends.
yeah, right.
Sorry, it was a
Yeah, well,
really silly joke.
there's a no, it's funny though, because there's a
I'm a
lot of
funny
stuff
girl. I like to
that
make
I've read.
light of things. Yeah,
But
yeah.
there's a lot of stuff from back then I think we'd be better off doing now than the world that we've created. I think
Oh,
the world we've created
completely.
is one of the most, like, it's just almost everything about modern society is like devoid of morals or some kind of divinity, and I think that's our downfall. There's
Oh,
so much
easily.
from the past that if we implemented today, I think we'd be a lot better off.
For sure. I get people mad at me, other Christians, for watching the Kardashians.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, question from the audience. What is your level of faith in humanity, Tom? You think humans can be ungoverned? You kind of answered that question, but would you want to answer the first half?
Yeah.
What is your level
Well,
of faith in humanity?
yeah. Okay. So human nature, yes, I have faith in that part. Humanity, not so much, because we see what humanity does. It's not very healthy. But that's only because of the indoctrination. If people are willing to move beyond that, then I have a lot of faith in the human spirit, because we see what happens when, let's say, there's a natural disaster or some kind of terrorist attack, even if it's staged. People come together and they do it really, really well under
That's
adversity.
true.
But when everyone's just like, oh no, my microwave's broken and I need a new phone, and I need to get on Facebook faster, and somebody's in my way at the store or something, that's when people are just like devolved into that really gross part of humanity. And I have almost no faith in that. And that needs to be governed, absolutely. But it's because they're choosing their lower self. They're choosing to be in the ego and not to be part of their essence, and to connect to their higher self. If people just made that decision, then and that's what happens in under adversity, which we see, then I have a lot of faith in that. So hope that kind of makes that distinction clear.
No, that's great. Let's put it on another question. That's another question. Do you believe everyone is meant to wake up eventually? I don't, but I know you're asking him. Go ahead.
No, I don't either. I think it's part of this world. It's part of this incarnation, is that some people are meant to, and part of that path is the frustration, I think. And when you understand things a little deeper and you go, why can't everybody else see it like this? Because you see the
I
wrongdoing,
know.
you see the immorality, and you see the lack of connection to a higher source, and you just go, why? Like, surely they can see it too, but they can't. And I think there are some people that will never ever see it in this lifetime. I just think we're born into different kind of paths, and some of those paths are to just live in the matrix world and to never find a higher connection or whatever. And then it's also, they are there to test us as well, that have found a deeper connection, but we're never like as deep as others, so we might be frustrating people that are further along the path than us. And that's also something to keep in mind as we get frustrated at those who are, not quite on the same path as us.
Oh, I get frustrated at them, but I don't actually physically shake them or get mad at them. Because
Yeah.
I have people doing, yeah, I have people doing that to me. They get mad at me because these people, as I said earlier, I mentioned the term white nationalists. They get mad at me for not being where they are in their epiphanies of the things that they've discovered about that man during World War II and all this other stuff. It's like, that's you. That's not me. Like, chill. Like, I'm not where you are, and maybe I don't want to be. Like, go away. Yeah. So I totally get what you mean. You have to be patient with everyone with their own epiphanies and their own evolution, for sure.
Yeah. And to have compassion and forgiveness too, because that's what we're taught from the Bible as well. It's like that's a virtue that sometimes we miss when we get frustrated that others aren't following the same path.
I don't believe, you will disagree with me, I'm sure, that people can forgive others without Christ. I'm talking about major things like a rape or like an assault or like one of the stories that I find incredible was that there's this woman, her name is Corrie Ten Boom, and her sister died at the hands of one of the soldiers during World War II. And this man had become a born-again Christian, and he went up to Corrie and he said to Corrie, do you remember me? And she hated him. She had nothing but utter hatred. And then she realized that she was doing what they were doing, and she didn't want to be a hateful person. And she remembered Christ dying on the cross. She I guess she remembered Bible passages or something, and or her heart sang out to that. And so then through Christ Jesus, she was able to forgive the man who killed her sister. That is only through Christ. I could not, I don't have the powers to forgive like that. Do you believe that you could forgive something that major if someone killed your cousin or your sister without Christ?
No.
Do you think you
No,
have
not
the
at all.
capacity? No. Yeah.
No, no, my lower self would always want that revenge or would never forgive them.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's like that's the whole point, is that you do need to find it through a higher source. But I think in terms of forgiving somebody that hasn't done a major wrong like that, like somebody
like
that just
cheating
goes
on
through
you,
life
taking your
believing
money.
something.
Yeah. Sorry, keep going.
Just went dark for a second.
Are you okay? Is your phone working? Or laptop, whatever it is you're using?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, got you now. Yeah.
Okay. You're in the middle of the road. I'm surprised you have a connection. Nah.
It's just going a little it's going a little gurgly, but I think I got you back now. Yeah.
All right. What were you saying about forgiveness?
It's really just that, major things like that take a real connection to the divine, but the smaller things like somebody not being on the same path as us and doing what we consider to be unconscious behavior, or, those that'll never wake up, I think we have to have compassion and forgiveness to them through our own heart. And then, absolutely, through a higher source for the major stuff, like if somebody took your loved ones away.
My friend Jesse Bell wants to know, do you believe we are collapsing? I guess as a society, he means, I'm assuming.
Well, you could take that a few different ways, because collapsing could be a good thing, because everything that our system is built on is nonsense. It's like it's leading us to our own demise if we continue with that system. So if that's collapsing, I think that's a good thing. I think humanity itself, though, is rising, because so many people now are realizing the way we've been oppressed and aren't happy with it. So more and more people are doing things like this, like creating content that is sharing what we've experienced, and then others are hearing that and going, well, something in that resonates, and it's waking more and more people up. So I think everything has its self-regulating patterns in nature, where something collapses and something else builds up as a result. And I think that's what we're experiencing. I think we're experiencing a collapse of all that was bad and wrong. And I think we're experiencing an uprising in its place of the things that are good and actually, going in more of a better direction.
Because like they're getting rid of things like Mr. Potato Head because, you know, his pronoun was Mr. and that's just not healthy for people. And they're getting rid of characters on The Simpsons because they were voiced by white people. And they're getting rid of all of these things. You know, we're now giving puberty blockers to children who identify as a different sex. Yet Angelina Jolie has a daughter who identified as John her whole little life. Now she's dressing as a girl again because it was literally a phase for that amount of time. So it's like stupid can't sustain stupid. Eventually, like, right? Eventually, these children that parents are sterilizing, these children that parents are excited to have boys that, oh, my boy's now a little girl. Yay, I'm going to dress you up in little dresses. That will one day hopefully be seen as abuse. And I think you're right. I think the way we're headed is so bad, but we need to head there to then rise up, right? And do you think that'll happen in our lifetimes?
I hope so. Yeah, absolutely. I think we're going to see. Yeah, I mean, I really hope so. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that stuff? Do you believe in like, do you think abortion is wrong and that like misgendering your child and making them be the other gender is bad? I mean, I
Yeah,
assume you
yeah.
do, but you seem pretty
Yeah,
common sense.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, that sort of stuff's just so far outside of nature. It's ridiculous. It's like the whole man trying to like create apes and stuff that like it's just all weird stuff that man is trying to become God, and that's not what our role is. And when we start to mess with life and start to try to alter it as well, then that's that's a dark path to go down. There are some pretty heavy consequences to that.
Do you believe part of that? Because I have a caveat to that, and I don't know, people might disagree with me. You know how like they keep finding like animals in ice, like mammoths and other like animals in ice, and they want to sort of bring them back. Do you think that's bad? Or do you think yes, that's bad because
Not sure.
they're extinct, don't bring them back, sort of thing? I know it's a random hypothetical, but like they are finding mammoths and stuff in Siberia.
Yeah,
I
yeah. I'm
find
just
that
not
really
sure.
cool.
Yeah, I don't know because I also don't believe everything that I hear from the news or like National
True,
Geographic or whatever, because
true.
they're all owned by Illuminati and whatever else. So it's like, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know the answer to that. I mean, I know they made that movie Jurassic Park when I was a kid, and that was about finding DNA frozen in sap or something from dinosaurs, and you managed to recreate
Yeah.
dinosaurs. But then like anything that's a Hollywood picture like that is funded by people who aren't there on that dark side of humanity. So
The
it would,
globalists.
yeah. So I'm not really sure if that were possible, if that would be a good thing. But I actually don't know the answer to that. I'm not sure. I mean,
Okay, it was random. I'm still not sure. I just think it's cool to bring back the animals that we
well,
killed.
yeah. I mean,
Like, yeah,
part of
like
me would
the
love to see
Tasmanian
them back.
tiger. Yeah,
Yeah,
I reckon that'd
yeah.
be
Part of me would
awesome.
love to see those animals, but whether it's good or right or wrong, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, neither do I. Yeah. Do you believe in common law? Pissy Leaks P asked this earlier. I overlooked it. I'm sorry, Pissy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the common law is just like our basic rights. So it's not really something to believe in. It's just something to use to your advantage, as opposed to just being subjected to being something that's not alive. Because common law applies to the living, so it's definitely a good thing to have.
Absolutely. Okay, we have a question here from YouTube. Bessie Coast. Where is it? That's not the right one. This has to be defeated before we get to that stage. Not once we're in it. Then it's too late. Then you can't go to the toilet without the government knowing about it. Look at China. At China, have they risen?
Yeah, I mean that's right. You want to stop things getting to there before you're actually in it, and then you have to try to get out of it somehow, which is a lot harder than stopping it in the first place. So that really is the awareness, and it's not being apathetic, and it's not being lazy, like you were talking about at the start there, where Australians are a little bit too like
Apathetic
lackadaisical, and
is the word I
yeah,
use. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so that's, it's important. And even if we feel that not enough people are, it shouldn't stop us. We've still got to use our voice, and we still have to say no. I think no is one of the most powerful words that people are forgetting to use. When this oppressive and over they're trying to put in too much surveillance and all that kind of thing and treat us like rats and sheep. We have to say no to that, because if we don't, then we haven't voiced our non-consent, and they'll just go, okay, well, you guys said, you guys didn't say no, so we just thought we'd do it. And so we do have to say that. And like I say, it might appear like the majority of people really are sheep, and they really are not voicing anything.
It does appear that way.
And they don't know. But I tell you what I got as great value from running that first virus video is that prior to that, I was like you, where I just thought everybody was an idiot. Nobody was,
I don't think everyone's an idiot. I just that sounds so harsh, don't I? I sound like such a cow. But I do think, I didn't even like saying that about my friends, but they're just not politically aware about really anything. Yeah, go.
It's more that they're not, like you said before, like people are waiting.
People are stupid.
Yeah, well, I think people just are choosing not to use their intelligence, I think, is a better way to put it.
That's a great way to put it.
They are looking for a leader, because we don't really have leaders. We have celebrities on TV, they're not leaders, and we have politicians, they're not leaders either. So it's like, where are the leaders in society? And that's what people are waiting for, I think, because...
Stand up, Tom. Stand up.
Yeah. Well, after I made the video, so many people stopped me in the street just to say thanks. And I was like, these are people who I would have ordinarily thought wouldn't have a clue about the world, but they obviously do. Silent majority. That's it. And the media might make it look like we're a minority, but I really don't think we are. I think we've got a silent majority of people who are waiting to use their intelligence. I don't think, like, I'm guilty of calling people idiots all of the time, and it's not the right thing for me to do. It's just like a frustration, like you. Everybody.
I don't actually think it. And as I said earlier, we all have our own categories of stupid. You ask me a maths question, I will fail.
Yeah, well, I've got them too. It's like nobody's great at everything. So it's like I really just think that people are waiting for that leadership and the right environment, and then they will apply their intelligence, and we'll see a much better world. And it could happen overnight. It really could. Some kind of shift like that to move things, and I think it can happen. So, whether it's in our lifetime or later, I think it really just comes down to that. Are the conditions right? And it could happen right now.
Absolutely. That makes so much sense. Where do you get all this from? Do you have like a father who used to be in the military? I feel like some of this has been ingrained in you, and I know some of it must be biblical, but
no, well, you know what? Some of I think it's a result of,
or that you went to church.
No, I was raised. I wasn't raised a Christian either. Sorry, like not by my parents, but I went to Christian schools, because Christian schools are just like better academically, and I went to private schools. So so that's how that came about. But yeah, look, I actually think it was because of their ignorances that I learned what I did. I didn't learn it from them. I saw how their lives were as a result of their belief systems, and then I resolved to like find the answers that didn't come from the traditional ways. So yeah.
No, that's fair. The question on the screen right now is, hey Tom, where do regular people go to learn what you know? That's a good question, Jesse.
Yeah, so as far as law goes, I learned from Mark Patelik at Solutions Empowerment. There's also a few sites. If you're in Australia, there's Know Your Rights Group. They're also really good. There's Freedom River, it's either freedomriver.com or .org or something. That's an Australian one. In America and Canada, you've got Cal Washington's In Power Movement. That's really good. There's a few Canadian sites that are good. There's once my site is live, I'm going to have a whole list of all the sites you can go to that have good information that you can learn this stuff from. And it's like, I'll be providing sources on my website as well of how to learn this stuff, because what I really have got a lot of value from is just learning the basics of commerce, which is essentially just offers and acceptance. That's really where I've got most of my success from. And, but you can really go really deep into some of these other people's material who've done it for 20 or 30 years and get a lot from it. Health-wise, I like Paul Chek, and it's kind of like just a combination of things I've learned over the years.
777 Jack from DLive has asked, or not asked a question, but I still think you would be, it'd be great to get your response. People need to stop waiting to be led and start acting in the proper way in the moment without fear. But the thing is, everyone is afraid. They think they have to pay that fine for not wearing that mask. They think they have to pay that parking fine, when all you really need to do is disassociate yourself from the physical identity on that piece of paper, and then you could just get away with it, right?
Well, yeah,
Ish.
basically just yeah. This is I actually appreciate the way you said that, because this is something important for people to learn from. Is if you use the
I'm
words
smarter
"get
than I
away
look.
with it," it assumes you've done something wrong, but you haven't
Yeah.
done anything wrong. This is the thing. So when people first find out about this, they say, "Well, how can I get out of such and such?" Or get away with, but you're not, because that implies you've done something wrong, but you haven't. All that's happened is they've tried to create joinder, which is joining you as the living man or woman to the corporate name that's on the piece of paper. That's what they're trying to do, which then gives them money and drains your energy. So rather than say get away with it or whatever, you just say, you could use some other term like to not accept their offer, or to stand your ground, or to maintain your sovereignty, or something to that effect, which is
I
more
got a
accurate
parking
rather
ticket.
than,
Help me get away with it. help me
yeah,
not. I haven't done anything wrong. It's just a parking ticket. It's just an admin
that's
fee
right.
that they're placing on me. I am not a criminal. No joinder.
That's right. That's right. Well, you're not a
Yeah.
criminal. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So there's a few different ways you can do that. And what I
I
might
just
do is, after we finish the call, I'll put you onto my guy that actually deals with people's parking and speeding fines and things. And then he can go
nice.
through a process. He can go through a whole process with you, and you can learn it by doing it. And then you can report to your audience on the process that you went through. And I think that, because I think going through it personally is one of the greatest ways to learn it, and then you can educate others based on that as well.
I just sent an email because I went a day over and I'm like, crap, I should have paid it earlier. So now I know that it's elevated. So I just sent an email which extends out like a couple of weeks or something. And I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
I I can't remember what I wrote, but I'm like, yeah, I can't, I'm sorry, but this is my first fine under this particular council. And then that's all I wrote, or something like that. And I only wrote that so that I could extend it out to see like what they respond. But
yeah, okay.
I don't think I'll get away with my little shitty brief.
Well, we can quickly just go through a couple of ways that you can make that go away, for example. So number one is that they're going after you, but they're assuming that you parked the car. So one of the easiest ways that people use is to fill out yeah. Well, so what people do is they fill out what's called a statutory declaration, which is when you name another driver. So you weren't the one using the car. And then that could just be yeah, but that could be anybody. And so you just have it sent to them at a different address, or even your address as well, but a different name. And then it's not joined to your name anymore. It's joined to somebody else. And if that person doesn't pay it or whatever, that's not your problem. So
can I name someone that's an enemy?
Well, no, because that would be lying. That'd be fraud. So, what you could do, I know where you're going with that, but yeah. But what you would do is you would say, if you did it online, sometimes they go, you have to do it online. And if you fill it out online, it'll have a driver's license number or something that you have to provide from this other party that you're naming. That's their way of trying to get...
I drove the car. But this is, you're talking about as... Go ahead, sorry, I'll stop interrupting.
So this is for you to fill out a declaration to say you weren't driving it and somebody else was. So what they will want you to do is do it on their online form, which means you have to provide a driver's license number. Otherwise, it doesn't let you fill out the form. And that's from somebody else, like somebody else's ID. But you don't want to do that. You want to file it with paperwork. You want to send in to their mailing address a statutory declaration signed by a JP, and then naming somebody but without their driver's license. So I've done it so many times to a fake name, and then because there's no driver's license attached to it, they can't follow anybody up. So the fine just disappears. So that's one way you can do it.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, but that doesn't really teach you much about how to that doesn't teach you much about how to learn it. I'm just saying that these are different ways. Like the whole reason I've gone since I was 19 I was 19 when I got my first fine, and I never even paid that one. So that's like 21 years of never paying fines or anything, because I always am creative enough to find a way around it. Just make it
You're
difficult for
like
them to follow up with it.
Superman.
Yeah,
Nice.
well, not quite. But yeah, it's just being creative with things and knowing that it's just an offer and there's ways to like get people to not bother following you up, and that's one of them. So you could do the statutory declaration. You can elect to go to court and just have it
Not going
heard,
to
even
court.
if you don't know how to handle yourself in court. You just go, look, I think this is unfair. They didn't even have any proof that I was using the car or that it was, whatever, like the whole no proof thing. And then just say, look, if you really feel that I have to pay something, just consider that I don't have any money or that I'd rather do community service or something. And then you just like, there's lots of different ways you can make it go away without actually paying it with your own money. And but when it's something small, like if a parking fine's under $100, sometimes it might be easier just to pay it. But if it's
It's
something like
83.
83, yeah. So sometimes it
83.
might be easier to pay it, but then you've got to put value into the learning experience. And so when there's a learning experience to be had, then I think it's good to challenge these things. It might not work the first few times you do it, but you learn each time. You go, well, why didn't that work? What? And then you go, it was the way I did this, or I didn't ask for evidence of that, or I didn't push it hard enough, or they wrote back and I didn't understand what they wrote back. So I thought that meant that I still had to pay it, but it didn't really because I didn't understand their reply. So it can take a few different, like the first few times I started working with proper legal notices, I didn't have success with it. And it was only after I kept going over it and over it, why didn't this work? I was told that this would work. And then I found out it was because I didn't understand the reply that was sent back, for example. So lots of little things to be learned.
But I have you or whoever your friend is, so I have the caveats to get away with it, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Ooh, this will make a great step one, step two on my channel. I do want to do this.
You'll definitely learn faster if you hire someone. So I'm going to give you his details because he can help with paperwork and things to help with that. But it does really make a big difference if you really understand everything that's in the paperwork rather than just send it in, hoping that it'll disappear and go away. Like really understand it, because that means you can apply it to other situations and obviously to help teach others as well.
Okay. And what about like speeding fines? And I mean, I don't have any now.
Same thing. They're all the same.
Cool.
Yeah. They're all statutory.
Short of killing someone, I can get away with most things.
Yeah, exactly. You just can't get away with murder, literally. Like that's the whole thing. That phrase, "get away with murder." Like no, well, that's the thing. It's like that comes under law because you've caused harm or loss. You've not loved thy neighbor or thy creator. Therefore, you've violated higher laws, not statutes and codes and acts which are below us, but higher laws which are above us that come from the creator. So in that situation, if you cause harm or loss to somebody else, then you are responsible to make that right in some way.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't want to get away with that. I feel too guilty.
No, I know you wouldn't.
Says that some guy wanted to know if you have a house, and then the continuation of that question was, or does this only work if you have a van kind of lifestyle?
No, I have a house. The only reason I'm in a car is that there was no signal at home today, so I had to drive up the road to get signal so I could hotspot the laptop to do the interview. But no, I live in a house, yeah.
Yeah, I think the reason he asked that was because he maybe thought that if you live in a caravan or if you live in like an RV, you can get away with those sorts of things. But that's what I understood from him.
Kind of, but even to register a car or to have a license, you'll need to put a physical address down. And even if you put a fake address down and they send stuff and you don't get it, that's kind of like your fault because they sent it. But with that, if they haven't sent it by registered mail, then there's no proof that you did or didn't receive it. So let's just say, for example, you live in your van or an RV, right? And then you just put down some mate's address or a fake address so you can get registration and a license. Now, if they send that to there, whether you live there or not, they can never prove that you received that. And in order for something to be accepted, it has to be, delivery is by way of acceptance. That's like a maximum of law. So if you haven't received it, it's never been delivered. So how can you pay a fine that was never delivered to you? You had no opportunity to respond to a notice. So then that's sometimes one of the remedies, for example, is if you've got an envelope and you know it's come from like somebody issuing a fine, you can write on the front of the envelope, you can write, return to sender, no consent equals no contract, and you could write mail fraud or something on it as well and send it back. Therefore, you never received it, you never accepted it, and then you were never, there was no delivery. It was never delivered. So then there's no legal grounds for them to follow anything up. So you can do that whether you live in the house or not. But the point being, if they tried to say, well, we sent you the fine, you could say, oh, did you? Do you have some evidence for that? Right? If they don't have evidence, they say, well, we sent it, but did you send it registered mail? If they didn't send it registered mail, there is no evidence that that was actually, they might have put it into a mailbox. They might have a postal stamp on it, but there's no evidence that it ever got to its destination. And there's certainly no evidence that it ended up in your hands. So that's another way that you can go against this way of them saying you got a fine when they can never prove that you did.
Well, are you one of those people who is anti the government having your information? Do you have, for example, the Medicare app on your phone, or does the government or Centrelink have your details, or are you sort of an off the grid type of guy for the most part? And then, when we're done, will you go back to your wild man ways?
Yeah, more off grid than anything. Yeah. I don't have a lot of apps. I still carry a phone, but I do, if I don't drive with it, for example, or my bank card, because they're all tracking devices. But what I have, because I got it here, I've got this thingy, which is it's called, I don't know what this is called, Mission Darkness. They make, where are we? They make these little pouches, and you just put your phone or your driver's license, your cards and whatever in your phone, you stick in that. And this thing protects from RF frequencies, so you can't actually read. It doesn't emit or receive anything. So even a bank card,
I used to
which
have
I've got
that.
here.
That's awesome.
Yeah, right. These things have chips in them. Yeah, that's a bank card, and these have chips in them. You know how it's like, oh, PayWave, that's so convenient. Well, that's actually a tracking chip that's in it. So if you've got this and it's got your name printed on it, that chip relates to your name. If you're walking around with this in your pocket or driving it around in the car and you're going past all of these check meters and things, they know that you, Tom Barnett, because it's attached to this card, are traveling between Byron Bay and the Gold Coast, or where I am at any time. So that's why I keep these things in a device that blocks those signals, or I just leave them at home and I don't carry them around. I don't carry a wallet and things on me when I'm walking around, not because I'm fearful of the government. I actually just don't like carrying things in my pockets, but it's yeah, more or less, I'm more off grid than anything else. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of surveillance. I don't use a lot of apps, and I don't use any government apps either.
All right, because I just got the Medicare app because I was sick of borrowing my parents' Medicare card, and I'm now going to get my own one. And so now it's on a
But why do you need
screen,
an app?
and now
it's just a card.
Well, I haven't got the card yet.
Why do you not just have a Medicare card?
Because I don't have either yet. Maybe once I get the card, I'll uninstall the app. But
yeah.
Do you recommend
you just
two
write
phones?
down.
Yeah. Go.
Yeah, I'll answer that in a sec. Yeah. Or what you do is you just write your Medicare number down. You just write the Medicare number on a piece of paper and keep it in your purse or something. Then you don't even have to have a card, because they never swipe the card. They just go, what's your number?
They don't anymore.
And you give them your number. Yeah, you give them the number and what number you are on the. If you're on there with your mum and your dad or whatever, you might be number 3 or number 1 on the card. That's all they ask for. If you ever need medical treatment or whatever, they only ask for that. With phones, I don't carry 2 phones. I used to, when I used to work in security, I had 3 phones, but I just don't bother, because I just don't carry it around with me enough, and I don't do enough stuff that even if people tracked everything I did and listened to everything that I did and saw everything that's in my phone, I still wouldn't care, because there's nothing in there that's I care about.
Yeah. Oh, that's fair. Because I have this phone and the government knows my number, but I wanted to get a second phone, whether it's a phone or just a console, so that I can detract it or something onto that. And because when I go for walks, whether I'm going for a walk with my mom or whatever, I don't bring my phone with me. I don't really see the need. I leave it at the address. But I'm feeling like I'm feeling really regretful that I got rid of my Sony Ericsson brick from 2004.
Yeah.
That was the phone. I wish I still had it. and I don't. But I want to buy one. I just don't know if those
Yeah.
are still a thing. I don't know if
Well,
those are still.
there's a couple of options though.
Educate me.
They are. Yeah, there's a
No,
couple of
no,
options
tell
with
me.
that.
Tell
Like,
me.
for example, I've got a couple of friends that do a lot. Well, they do a lot on Instagram, and
Same.
Instagram have a lot of really bad leaking of information sort of stuff. So they have one phone to post to Instagram on that they don't keep any. They don't have like banking or email or anything on that phone. They just have Instagram on that phone, so they can
That's
do
what I
all
want.
that. And
Something
there's
like that.
nothing to take from the phone if anyone wanted to take it. And the other phone they use for calls. But you've got a couple other options. One is to go back to more of a brick style phone, and the other is to use a phone that's not. So you could get a Motorola phone and have it installed with Linux software, not Android. And there's people that'll do that on eBay. They'll sell it for about $300. Or you get a BlackBerry, and that's what a lot of people who are like drug dealers and police and whatever, they use BlackBerries because they're encrypted. And yeah, that's your option as opposed to using an Android or an iPhone.
Okay. I know you probably want to go. Well, I'm almost done. I'm sorry. I have so many questions. I'll have you back on, right? You'll
That's
come
all
back
right.
on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
before I let you go, and you'll have me on your channel too, because then I can talk about my
Yeah.
parking ticket experience. But
Yeah.
I was gonna say, what was I gonna say? Crap, I had it. It was important. Crap. Give me a second. What was it about? I forgot it was important. Crap. Give me a sec.
You're right.
Oh, that's right. I remembered now. Okay, thanks to Jesse Bell, because he wrote too many times, dear, when we talk on the phone, it drops out because he has a brick. He has like the brick style phone or an old phone. I was going to say something similar to that. And that's basically, and this will sound insane, and I don't want people to think I'm a nut job, but it's true whether people choose to believe me or not. When I talk on the phone to certain people, a friend of mine named Sandy, another friend of mine named Jimothy, specific people, I can hear in the background, and I know because those people are internet nerds, very smart, and they speak out against the government in their own circles, that I'm being listened to. I know it's that. And then I hang up, I call them back, doesn't make much difference. So I feel like I am being tracked. I must be. If I spoke to you on the phone after this, I bet you I'd hear the and I even hang up, and then I say things like "fuck you, government," like as a joke. I mean, I don't know if they actually are listening and care that I've just said that, but I know that I'm being listened to. It's not in every conversation. Like if I'm talking to a girlfriend of mine, there's no like oh okay, just some bimbos talking about clothes. But if I'm talking about more serious topics, I hear the. Do you think I'm being tracked? Does that sound like that to you, or do you think I'm a nut?
Oh yeah, no, likely. Like it happens with me too. Like if I've been on a few people's podcasts, and then if it's a Zoom call set for a certain time, and then weirdly, right before the show starts, Zoom won't load, or their electricity in the house goes out. Like stuff you couldn't write. Like it's way too coincidental to be coincidence. And
easily,
it does happen. You know, they're onto all this sort of stuff, and they do censor it, and they will like. Just when somebody's about to speak about something really important, like all of a sudden the signal will drop out and they freeze up and whatever, or like you can't load. Yeah. So it's like it does happen, and it is targeted to people that are expressing the right stuff. And that's the thing. And that's another thing. If you're ever watching somebody's show, or, their thing got canceled or it cut out halfway through, you should find out what they're talking about. You should go to their websites or follow them on whatever their telegrams are or whatever, because they're obviously onto something. Nobody censors something that's like not true.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that's why I feel like all of this because people get red pilled in their own way. Like people get red pilled because they think the moon landing is fake, or people and all of this stuff leads everyone back to the same thing, and that is government overreach, kitty fiddlers, that's a better word, and the globalists or the globalist agenda, all of the ways that people get red pilled with conspiracy theories that might not be conspiracy theories, although I'm not saying that I think the moon landing was fake. I just don't know. But like that was just an example. But all of these things lead people to get red pilled and arrive where we are. It just happens in so many different ways. It might even happen through SJW stuff or through finance. Like people get red pilled in all different ways now. It's kind of crazy. Do you find that?
Yeah. It's there's so many ways, absolutely, and that's the good thing. That's why I think this whole thing of having all of the information devices and things that we have, while they're used for tracking and things, they're also used for people to wake everybody up, and there are so many ways for that to happen because of things like the internet and social media and everything else. So realistically, it's something they're using against us, but it also works against them as well because of the fact that they didn't really count on everybody using it the way we are to share whatever it is. The amount of things that they've done which have been outright lies throughout history, it's only a matter of time before that becomes uncovered. So that's why there are so many ways for people to get red pilled, is because almost everything they've ever done and taught us through our lives has been a lie. So it's got to come out eventually.
Yeah, I actually did a video, I'd say 4 months ago now, but it did really well. And the video was talking about the current Australian Constitution. The current Australian Constitution is not the Australian Constitution. The original Constitution, 1901, we don't operate under it. We have two working constitutions. No, that's the wrong. We have one working constitution, and it's the false one. And I made this whole entire video about it. It circulated really well. I even had previous next door neighbors saying, did you make a video about this and that? And I'm like, yes, like it's kind of funny. But yeah, people don't know what our own constitution says. Even I don't know the specifics of what it says. That video, I had someone help me research it. But yeah, it's just crazy how little Australians know about their own constitution, their own laws. And when you tell someone, a friend or whoever, they don't believe you. They're like, yeah, but like, I wouldn't believe what you say anyway because your research might be wrong. And I'm like, well, F you. It's like, yeah, what? Did you know that about the two constitutions? Yeah, I would have assumed you knew that, yeah.
Yeah, but it's also, it's not up to them to believe you. It's like up to them to find it for themselves. Otherwise, they're just asking for somebody to rule them. It's a bit ridiculous. But, the principal act of the Commonwealth, though, is the bills of... Yeah,
they've chosen that though. So then when I give them the reality, don't shove it back in my face like I'm a liar. That's not nice. But sorry, keep going.
Yeah, well, they're asking for it though. So yeah, it's the Bills of Exchange Act is the principal act of the Commonwealth. I think it's Section 4 of the Constitution says that. So that just shows that we are governed by commerce. And so if you ever want to find the highest act in the country, it is the Bills of Exchange Act.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Are you comfortable there, or would you like to go now? Is your back sore? I feel like you're in a weird position there.
No, I'm good. No, I'm fine.
Oh, okay.
Is there more questions from people?
I mean, I haven't asked any questions from the people.
It's this angle thing. It makes it look weird. It's like I'm back to front to how I would normally be, but I'm quite comfortable.
Yeah, I don't want you to be uncomfortable. No, all the questions are coming from me right now. No one has continued to ask any questions. Everything that's coming out of my mouth is from my own curiosity. Cool. But I will tell a big shout out to D Live, who's given us 71 viewers. Thank you so much for tuning in and finding this fascinating. I know most of you are American, but it must be interesting for you guys to hear the Australian stuff that we're going through. And everyone else on Twitch and YouTube, thanks for watching. Is there any other questions? Oh, okay. Here we go from Jessie Bell. How did you come to this?
Come to what though?
I suppose your current realizations on everything. You said you listened to some guy?
No, just experience. It's just, I've always had a knowing, and I think some of us always have since we were young. I've just had a knowing that it's not right. I just couldn't explain it when I was a kid. So through a lot of trial and error and getting a lot of things wrong, then that's how I got to find, where more of the reality is lie. And I'm still obviously yet to find a lot more of the realities that are having, just knowing that it wasn't right, the system that I was born into, and then second of all, going through a lot of different trial and error before I could.
Hello? I think he's frozen. Is he
Yeah, I
frozen
gotcha.
for you guys? Okay. No worries. Sorry, it froze for a second. Did you understand everything he said, or
Yeah.
did it sort of go blurry for you guys too? All right, let me just take that off. This is so unrelated to everything, and I'm really sorry for asking this, but I can't help it. What do you think of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry? Oh no, are you there? Hello?
Is she that movie star that got married to
I wouldn't
that
call her a
prince?
movie star. Yeah, she's a TV actress that got married to that prince. So you don't know
Okay,
much
right.
about it, do you?
Well, I don't. No, I don't watch TV, so I don't know. I just know that. But I heard that they both dropped out of the royal family. Is that right or not?
That is true. Yeah. What do you reckon? Good
Well,
idea,
that's
bad
probably.
idea?
I mean, no, that's a good idea. I mean, the royal family is one of the most insidious families on earth. They're like part of the evil empire. So maybe they found out about what was going on and they didn't want to be part of it when it crumbles, and got out while they could. I
Yeah,
don't
so
know
they
that.
went
I
to
don't know enough about. I
California,
don't follow. Oh,
the
right.
land
Yeah,
of
I don't know. Well, I mean, I
pedophilia.
don't know anything about. Yeah,
Oops, I used the
I don't know.
word.
There's too many things. Like you can't have been at that level without have been exposed to stuff, whether you partook in it or not. They definitely know what's going on in the world. And yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about politics or royal families or actors because I don't watch TV and I don't follow politics. But I just know that if they've dropped out of the royal family, it's for a good reason. So yeah, that's all I can say.
Fair enough. I don't think the Queen is part of it because she every single year she releases a Christmas message and she goes on about how awesome Jesus is. Or is that just a cover for
Yeah,
the
that's a cover.
is it? Okay. That's sad
Yeah, yeah,
because I like
yeah,
her. I don't like her son who was caught out as part of the kitty fiddler world.
yeah. Right. Yeah, no,
You
she's
reckon they're
definitely. I
all
mean, a lot of people do that. Yeah, a lot of people do that. They put on a nice persona for the public that they're all clean and good people, but the Queen's pretty evil.
wow. You're really making my heart drop right now. I'm trying not to react. I always liked her. All right. There is one final. Let's do one final question. It's from a D Liver.
Yep.
Let's have a look. Ep didn't drive himself. Oh, so obviously he's saying that Epstein didn't commit suicide. But let's see. His question is, dear, I recently started trading forex, foreign exchange, and am having a bit of success with the AUD USD. Any advice from him? Do you know anything about that stuff?
No, I'm not. I don't know anything about that because it's all like some people can do really well in it, and if you're able to follow the models that are being used, then you can do really well from it. The thing is that it is models being used because that's the world of fake money. So it's all it's all orchestrated. There's no accidents when it comes to fluctuations. And I know that some people are doing really well in cryptocurrency as well at the moment, but I don't have any money, so I don't know anything about how to invest it. I just know how these things work based on the models that are created by the people that run the financial system. So if you are able to be ahead of that game, you could make a lot of money doing that.
Wait, so you're saying you have a house, a car, a phone, a card with a chip on it, but you don't have money. You obviously are doing relatively well in your young life. What do you mean?
Well, the house that I live in, I basically caretake, so I don't pay any money. My car is worth about $400 because you haven't seen the outside of it. It's pretty bad. And my phone is worth $80. I get everything secondhand.
Where's your income come from?
Well, mostly through consults and ebook sales, things like that. It's just not a lot. I just don't do a lot of that. Most of the work I don't get paid for.
Yeah, I don't get any money from YouTube and stuff either. But so you're when you say you caretake, you mean that you're like kind of house sitting but permanently?
Oh, well, I do the grounds and look after the animals and that sort of stuff. It's more of like a property with animals on
Okay.
it and orchards and things like that. So I do that in exchange for lodging.
Oh,
but I
okay.
don't
There you
own
go.
a house. Yeah,
Oh, okay. I was
yeah.
like, what do you mean you don't?
Try to keep it simple.
Very simple. Wow. Interesting. Okay. But do you want to be earning more? Do you want more? Does that appeal to you in any way?
Um,
Like what
yeah,
if you
yeah.
have what
Well,
if you get
yeah, it
married and
does.
have kids one day? You
Yeah,
need to
mate.
be
Yeah,
able to
might need some
provide.
more
That's
money
the
then.
gender role. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
Well, it's true. Yeah, no, I do. I am interested in making a lot of money, but it's not for me. It's not so I can have like a Ferrari and all that sort of stuff. It's because I would
I meant
actually
for a
like to.
family.
Yeah, no, well,
Keep
actually,
going.
it's for land. I would love to be able to acquire good amounts of land and start putting in. Well, first of all, they would be organic farms, but also to have community lodging on there, and then also educational
Smart.
facilities, which is where all of that stuff that I would put into homeschooling syllabus would actually be able to be taught through an institution where people can come and learn everything that you didn't learn at school, and all the stuff you were indoctrinated in learning. That's all the fiction world where you can learn the world of substance, which is how to look after your body and mind, how to understand your rights, and how to be
Fabulous.
self-sufficient and self-responsible.
That's super important. Yeah, I
So
actually
yeah,
really want you to succeed in that. This will be the last question. I'm
yeah,
sorry. This
thanks.
is important. Yeah. Will
That's
there be
cool.
a way of avoiding getting the inoculation once it's mandated by airlines and all of that? And then you have that passport just to be able to
Yeah,
eat at a cafe. Is there a way to avoid it?
yeah,
Excuse me.
yeah. I don't think that that's going to be really mandatory because there's always going to be something like Dolores Cahill's already talking about putting together that Freedom Airlines, which won't want
Good.
vaccines and all that for travel. But also, they can still never force that on people. So if you start learning
So they won't go
more
door
about
knocking
your
saying,
rights,
yeah,
don't. No, it's like Australia. The only way that that could happen, because Australia is too spread out and too like there's not enough military and police and all that to do that. So it would require, which is a possibility, it would require lots and lots of UN and Chinese troops coming into Australia to do that. But it's just one of those things that I don't personally see it happening. I think, anytime that
I
they've
hope you're
said,
right.
yeah, well, like the Prime Minister even said, forget his name, but he said like not even that long ago that there's going to be mandatory vaccines, and then within the same day he backflipped on it and said, no, well, they won't be mandatory. So it's like these little things that they keep putting out to demonstrate that there's an agenda that they want, but they're not going to have it because there are too many people that won't go along with it. The thing is, if you put yourself in the shoes of being an airline, how many people, even in mainstream, are saying, I don't really trust this so-called inoculation. It's not even so they would go out of business really quick. And that's not what a business is in business to do. They want
Yeah.
customers flying on
Qantas
their
did it.
airlines, for example. Cafes want people coming in and eating their food. So if enough people go in, and if you go onto my YouTube channel, I did a video on how to. It's called Masks and QR Codes, which is about your rights when it comes to people asking you to sign in to come to a restaurant or to wear a mask or to do a QR code, which goes against all of the actual laws. So they can be sued for that if they try to enforce it because a business can't enforce that. So an airline or a cafe or whatever cannot enforce a law because that's not their job. They're only there to provide goods and services. They can't do anything outside of that. If they do, they're breaking the law. And also nobody can force a medical procedure on you.
Absolutely.
There's only very
Absolutely.
so there's a lot of ways that you don't have to do this. This is a scare tactic, and it's important not to buy into the fear because the fear is taking you away from your connection to the higher source because that's your real security. And as you're fearing, you're actually, you're kind of losing that faith and that trust in your creator. So it's important not to allow that to creep in. That's kind of like the dark energy or the devil or however you want to look at that. That's that
Satan.
creeping in fear from the negative entities that are running the world, but it's our choice not to have that. And if you buy into that, you're actually feeding that. So it's important to maintain your sense of knowing that that's not the truth and that's not where love comes from, and that's what you're there to embody, and then that's your part of your role in changing the world for the better.
Yeah, well, I just want to say to everyone watching, whether you believe in God or not, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So however you become red-pilled, just know that it all goes back to God. At least that's what I believe. I know he's a little bit different in the terms of spirituality, but everything is in here. And I think it's important that everyone that we all become as united as possible, because the whole reason that all of this extra crap exists, racism, fat versus skinny, man versus woman, feminism versus whatever it is, it's all created by the globalists. They want you guys to be arguing, and now you're all so distracted with that stuff that you're allowing the tacit acquiescence. And by allowing the tacit acquiescence and doing everything the government tells you, you're giving them permission. Every single time you pay a fine, every single time you go outside and you get told off for not wearing your mask and then you quickly comply, that is you agreeing to a contract. And so, of course, they're going to make it they're going to mandate it. It's not a mandate. They can't mandate that. It's not a legal, justifiable law. So you guys can get away with it, but you guys are so scared of having to pay a fine that you comply. And it's you guys who are causing the problems. I mean, I don't mean to point the finger, but that's true. I don't wear the mask. Don't wear the mask. Do you agree that it's tacit acquiescence that's the problem?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it always has been.
For those who don't know what tacit acquiescence means, it's like a silent agreement. You're agreeing by not fighting back. And
yeah, by not saying no. Yeah, that's It's like it's all just offers and acceptance under commerce, and they're saying that you've got to do it. And if you just, it's almost like as well they don't even have to put it out in like a proper form of a notice. It's like through the media even, or through a movie, and then by you seeing what they want to do and not saying anything about it, that's your tacit acquiescence, or like it's a soft version of that. So you've got to you got to say no. You got to say anytime that comes up, whether it's through, even if it's not through like a legal means, like it's supposed to be, and it's through the news or it's through like just propaganda, you've still got to say no, because if you don't, you're actually allowing that to go through. That's your acquiescence by silence.
Yeah, PC, thank you. That's the better way to put it. Silence is consent. That's probably what I meant to say for those who weren't familiar with the fancy language. Well, I think I'll let you go so you can drive home and relax and, rest your back. Even though you said you weren't uncomfortable, I feel like you are, so please rest your back.
Yeah, no, I'm actually against the seat. It's just, it doesn't look like
it really doesn't. Yeah. Well, did you have fun? Did you enjoy today's show? I hope so.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah. We can do another one for sure.
For sure. That'll be great. All right, well, guys, go. Plug what you need to plug. Go.
I'll send you an email after this. I'll send you an email with that guy. I just don't want to say it over air because I don't want everyone, like, it's like that whole thing if he'll get targeted maybe. So I'll send it to you via email, and then you can contact him and, go ahead and get that parking fine discharged.
Well, you said if it's less than $100, I shouldn't though, right? Or should I do it for the sake of this tutorial for my channel?
What I mean is that the learning curve is worth doing. It's just not worth going through a lot of hassle and going to court and things like that, usually over a $80 fine. But when it's a learning experience, it's definitely worth it. It's just when people get pissed off about $80, it's like, sometimes it's better off just to work like 3 or 4 hours, whatever it would take if you're on minimum wage, just to pay that off, than it would be to spend 10 to 20 hours fighting it. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes path of least resistance. But when you see there's the value in the lesson and the process of learning it, then go ahead and do it.
How exciting. Yeah, no, I got ya. All right, well, guys, I'll be back next Wednesday. I don't know who my guest is. I usually have one prepared like a week in advance, and I don't this time, so hopefully I get someone awesome. Thank you so much, Tom. This was so educational. I really appreciate it. You're a really nice person.
Cool. You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
No worries. End broadcast. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone.